I'm in my studio here with my partner, Rachel Glasgow, who's also an artist, and I'm presenting a project called POWERWORLD. What is POWERWORLD? POWERWORLD is a project. I've been making music for about, 10 years now. I have a couple other projects. Probably most well known for Sanctums, which is a project I did with Dan Solo. We've played some festivals, played Shambhala. I've done lots of DJing in my time. Lots of my DJ friends are on this stream, which is great. It's nice to see all of you out there supporting it. And I guess I kind of hit a brick wall with some of that stuff, as one does, and started asking a lot of deeper questions probably last summer was really when it kind of started to hit me, and I really wanted to sort of investigate kind of where society is and where it's going. So I started to turn that lens onto things now and took a really deep look at the society that we live in, Western society, a society that's globally affected by capitalism and now what I would like to call hyper-capitalism, and the need to feel those things. That was kind of where I guess the ideas really started to begin.
Where are we going to work? Where is society moving? In particular, our generation and the things that our generation has had to deal with, and what does that outlook look like for us? The baby boomers got it pretty good.
They do have it pretty good. No, and that's a great point, and that kind of segues. So once I started asking those broader questions, I started to get into a deeper niche of things, and just seeing the trend with a lot of multinational corporations and just jobs in general, and seeing my friends and just wondering what is everybody doing? What's a job right now? What's happening right now? What do you do for a living? And this whole side hustle culture that we have of trying to Uber drive and do all these different jobs, and it seems like the kind of concept of a career that existed for our parents and their parents is dissolving rapidly, and that I think has to do with a lot of.
And that was pre-COVID.
That was pre-COVID, which I think even now, I really do wonder what people are doing a lot of the time. I'm very lucky to have a job where I can work from home, but I know that's not the case for a lot of Canadians and a lot of people in the world. So yeah, those were kind of the questions, who are we, where are we going, and where will we work? In this kind of, I guess, obsession with hyper-capitalism, with everything just bigger and bolder and more grand and more ridiculous. The kind of now culture that exists, or that I feel is something that a lot of us are experiencing. That was kind of where I wanted to take the music as well. I really intentionally wanted to sort of abuse and take the worst things about music and see if I could make them creative or interesting.
The genres that you compiled in this single album are from quite a range of the spectrum.
Yeah, I wanted to just, in the spirit of hyper-capitalism, I wanted to push everything I was doing in such a hardcore way. Exactly what you're saying is push genre, just put as much of it as I can in all the different pieces. And could I have a song that was almost a dark, evil, menacing Bobby Krillick Haxan Cloak soundtrack, for those who get the reference, soundtrack of The Witch, or Chernobyl, that kind of brooding atonal thing, but then also have trap and hip hop and elements and
break
kind of break beats, and convince you that they work together, that there's something happening there. Another thing I really became interested in was just just the kind of subcultures, the kind of grossest subcultures, the kind of most bizarre subcultures. I got obsessed with clowns and juggalos and rap metal, and I wanted to see if we're all getting what we want in this very commoditized society, if we're getting our niche perfect techno, and there's a whole Rick Owens kit you can wear with that, and there's a whole identity. How can I go more working class? How can I go more appealing to that kind of more primordial side of the music and music spectrum, and almost like, it's like anti-industry because it's so pro-industry, because everything is becoming so much more niched. It's a lot easier to find the things you like. So I'm trying to convince you to like something you might not like. I can kind of walk you through, I guess, some of the recording stuff, and maybe I'll just pull this other camera over here. My kind of main two workhorses on the table here would be my Virus. And I love the Virus because it was kind of invented for really cheesy music, and it still can do things today that a lot of computer synthesizers can't. So even though it's a digital synth, it has a really funny quality to it that sounds like, early 2000s trance, which again, think about, like, I'm trying to pull out of all of culture's dumpsters, like, what a better place to start than 2000s trance, which I now love. I think that's probably another funny thing about the process is, as I was getting into these different niches, I fell in love with them, and I found so much honesty in them, especially when you start to realize, like, how snobby we can be with, like, our choices and the things that we like, and then the cultures and the subcultures that we participate in. I found that, like, these kind of more raw, rank cultural niches, they had so much honesty and heart, and that drew me to it even more. Because, as an artist, I feel like, for me personally, trying to do something that feels authentic and honest is always a goal for me. So that's my Virus over here. It's great. It has like a million presets. I spent hours finding like every possible preset by Tiesto and all these guys, and modded them and created my own sounds with that. The next piece here I used, like, I think this probably appears on almost every single track on the album, is the Dave Smith Pro 2. It's a monophonic synthesizer, so it only plays one voice at a time. You can kind of hack it and do like 4-note chords, which is great for making really easy stuff, and it's got a great sequencer. And yeah, this kind of just filled in that nice sort of analog niche. I tend to spend a lot of time doing prep work and sort of laying out my parameters, putting the walls on the box, kind of. So I spent couple months just like recording samples, finding samples, manipulating stuff. I have a couple of like old rack samplers down here. So I got like the S950, and in part of trying to like capture like the spirit of that hardcore element, I did a lot of like sampling using like vinyl record player, using classic breaks, some breaks records, and did it in a very like very, very over-the-top, arduous way that I'm sure you could find a good sample pack for, but I wanted it to have like my own textures and feelings, so I spent a lot of time creating my own sounds. I guess with each step of this project, even in the audio phases before it was really like a realized thing, I was trying to see how crazy I could go, how much time and energy and like insanity could I put into the work. And so all of the elements, again, are so handcrafted, and it started with the audio and those sort of meticulous processes, and trying to see how crazy I could drive myself with that. Probably it was like, I think in the summer or probably close to the fall, another local artist, Carrie McGuire, she was really pushing me to fill out a grant and write a grant, and thank God that she did that, because I'm not the best with paperwork in general. And pretty much within the same week of Rachel coming to Canada, I found out that I had gotten this crazy grant for a pretty reasonable amount, and more than anyone.
And for this particular project.
For this project.
But also, like, I feel like when you signed up for that, there was like an outline for it. Like, you had like a bigger, different plan for it. But then when you got it in March, then COVID hit, things had to change. And so that's why it's so heavy on 3D elements, and like heavy on like the glitching and like the video aspect of it, and
Yeah, that's a great segue, Rachel. Like, so Rachel comes, we find out about this grant, but literally a couple days after you were here, the borders were closed, and we were in total isolation. So this kind of great idea I had for this grant, or quote unquote, I was going to film all kinds of people and do these elaborate scenes.
We had grand ideas, and then didn't realize what it took to do that.
Yeah, when you're only allowed to hang out with like 5 people at a time, it really limits what you can do. Knowing that we were going to be quarantined, especially for an uncertain amount of time, and especially doing a little bit of research on how long these things typically last, it was like, well, we have to sort of meet this deadline for this project. Will things be lifted by the time we get there?
Yeah.
And we decided that that wasn't going to happen. So that was kind of the moment where the project really, I guess, started to shift and become something else, which is where I really invested so much time in creating like thousands of graphics. I started learning 3D rendering.
Learning Blender.
Yeah. Here's an example of just me pulling in, I guess the one that's on the screen right now is an example of me, just something that I created in Blender. And again, I just started finding free models, watching tutorials on how to make things explode. Pretty much every day I'd watch maybe 4 or 5 hours of tutorials and then try and make stuff. And I think you'll probably see throughout the film, there's different qualities to the stuff that I made. So there's a lot of stuff that maybe looks really polished or really kind of has this like vibrant, more of a PlayStation 4, 3 kind of look. And then there's some other stuff where it's definitely like PlayStation 1. But I think that, part of that, we sort of leverage the learning process creatively in the sense that all the stuff that looks really lo-fi is sort of intentionally so, and all of the stuff that looks hi-fi is also intentionally so. I tried to also embed in the sense of hypercapitalism this like sense of nostalgia. I mean, we're living in like the Magda era of people trying to find this nostalgia. So I did want, as much as I was creating completely new things from extremely arduous processes, I wanted there to be like these moments of stuff that people would recognize or feel a kindred to, especially like video game culture, like early video gaming, anime, weird like the Kubrick films, like lots of little stuff was pinched from that in a sense that you could grab onto something and find something new in this like pile of garbage. Thank you everyone for participating in this talk, and I love the chat. You guys are awesome. Really appreciate it.